Welcome to Rhythm Timeline 2. We're going to have a look at the demo scenes first, and then we're going to set up our own scene from scratch. So once you've installed the package, you'll see inside Assets, Dips Loom, Rhythm Timeline, Demos, you'll find a few demo folders. The first one is going to be VR1 that we're going to look in detail in another video tutorial. We've also got the OSU Demo scene. We'll have a quick look in this one, but we'll go in depth in another video tutorial. And this is the default one, Penguin Tracks. And here I've already opened the demo scene, this one. And let's have a look inside play mode, what it looks like. We've got this over here. Let me just put it in maximized. We've got a little welcome message over here. It tells you that you can use the D, F, and J keys. Let me just reduce the audio level a little bit, so it's not as distracting over here. So we've got the keys that we can press. We can also use the mouse. We can select some of the songs over here, which one you want to choose. We got the title of the song, the artist, how long it takes, the high score. The high score is actually saved inside the scriptable object of this song, but we can also save it to disk with our save manager. So let's have a quick look at this piano song over here. So as we press our tracks, we can see that they light up. I'm pressing the wrong button. I'm pretty bad at my own games. Happens all the time. So we got some hold notes, tap notes. You notice how the background has started animating? That's actually because I got a chain of more than X amount, and we've got some events that are triggering with those this information. We also got the song is cleared with a score on the left and the high score on the right. Yeah, so that's essentially the demo. So in this one, we didn't have any counter taps or slide notes, but I'll show those to you in a second. The other demo scene I wanted to show you is the OSU demo scene. We'll go through this one very quickly and then come back. So in this one, if you're familiar with the OSU gameplay style, essentially it's one where we've got those rings and you have to click at the right time when they are close to the circles. So I'm not very good at those types of games, but here we can see how it works, how we can get some perfects. If I stop pressing, we're gonna get some misses, some goods, etc. And you can notice how it changes color. We have control over those. We've got control over the things that are getting displayed. Actually, the numbers are automatic between tracks, and the colors are being set up with the tracks themselves. And we have our song cleared, and we can go back over here. So we'll have a look at how this is done inside another demo, another video tutorial. Sorry. Very, very interesting how we place the notes. So let's go back to the Penguin Tracks demo, because this is the normal type of gameplay, the default one. If we go to the rhythm director, we'll notice all our notes are being displayed. So first thing we'll do is go back to the menu and hide this welcome panel so we can see what's going on over there. So if you press the rhythm director, you can go over here, press the lock, because if we don't press the lock icon over here, as you can see, as soon as I try to select something in the scene, it just disappears. So we click over here, and now we can drag through our notes, and everything is displayed inside the editor. We can notice how if I move things around, they get moved also. These are being spawned inside our tracks, and we're going to have a look at how we can make this inside our own scene. So let's stop previewing. We'll go over there. I'm going to go inside my demos, and I'm going to create a new scene. from scratch. So let's have a look. Actually, let me just create a folder. We'll call this one tutorial 1. I'll create the scene. And we'll go with it. So in this scene, we've got absolutely nothing. First thing you'll want to add is inside the shared folder, prefabs, the managers, and the rhythm director. So this essentially has everything you need. We're getting a few errors because we actually don't have any tracks that are being set up on the rhythm director. So we'll add those in. We're just going to add a track. And what I recommend to do here before you do anything else is that you create prefabs for all of those. So let's go back over here in my tutorial 1, and I'll create some prefab variant for all of my things. This way, this is neat and tidy. And if you make any changes, you can save it in the prefab, just like what I'm going to do right now. So for example, we've got our tracks over here. What is a track? It's a start point and an end point. So I'm going to add a little sprite over here. Let's do a 2D sprite. Let's put a circle there. And I'm going to increase the size of the circle quite a bit. Oop. There you go. I'm not really sure if this is the correct size, but we can always resize later. So this was added. Let me just add this to the prefab. I'm going to save it, apply all, and there you go. Now it's inside my prefab. I can just duplicate. We'll put 4 of those because we want 4 tracks, just like in the demo scene we had before. So let me just hook those up. So we got inside our rhythm director. We can drag and drop. We have a track 1, track 2, track 3, and track number 4. So let's go back to our rhythm director. See if we can see something. There you go. Now we have our little notes that are being spawned, but they're all being spawned in the same place. So perhaps all we have to do is go back to our scene view and move our tracks. So put one track over there, one track on the left, one track on the right, and another track to the right. So let's see now. If we go back to our timeline, rhythm director, and now we can see all our notes are being spawned on the right track. Let's actually press play mode to see if it actually works, because until it's tested, we never know. Well, we don't see anything. So there's two issues right here. The first one is our tracks are outside the game view. So first thing we'll do is grab all of those and move them up until they fit on the camera. So that's one thing that is fixed. And the other one is we haven't set anything to play the song. So we'll just do this and play on start. That's it. So now we've got our stuff. We'll just press play. We've got our notes. They're coming down. And let's see if they arrive here, just like in the demo scene, we can press J. There you go. A. I'm pretty bad at this. But we see that it's working. We can also use the mouse. Everything is working as we expect. So pretty cool stuff. But currently we're playing some random song that we don't even know what it is. It's actually a metronome that comes inside the shared folder. So what we could do is create our own timeline. So let's click on this one. Over here, you could duplicate this one and start working from there, but I'll show you how to make your own from scratch. So if you go inside Create, Dipsloom, Rhythm Timeline, you can go over here and press the Rhythm Timeline asset. Once you do that, you can just call this tutorial number 1. And where with this timeline that is completely empty. So let me just click on it. We're going to create. First thing we're going to do is add an audio track to play our song. And then we can go inside the rhythm and add a rhythm track. So since we got 4 tracks over here, we're going to do the same. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm pressing Ctrl D to add those tracks. One thing that is very important is that you set up the IDs for those tracks. So I'm gonna press over here and press ID number 1, ID number 2, and ID number 3. On the right side, as I select those tracks, we notice that we have some autofill tools. Those are very useful for setting up some notes directly without drag and dropping them by hand. You can just autofill the whole track. But for now, we're going to do things manually. I can explain things as I go. Next thing we'll want to do is add a tempo track. The tempo track is very useful for setting up a tempo that you can actually snap your things on. So we're going to set up a tempo. We'll see that our tempo is currently set up to BPM 120. And this value comes from our timeline. So the timeline, if you select it, we can see our BPM is 120. If we change this, normally it should automatically change this one. Yeah, as you see, 150. But you can change it if you want, because you can have different BPMs inside your timeline if you want. And you can set an offset and a duration. So let me just add the song over there. I'll just select a random song, happy, like a happy song. I'm going to go here inside this cog icon to set this to seconds, because I like working in seconds rather than frames. And let me put this song at, let's say, start at 2 seconds. So it gives the time a bit to the player to actually see things coming. Since we're inside the timeline, we've got a lot of things that comes by default, and one of those is ease in and ease out, which is very, very neat. So now our audio is actually going to ease in as we listen. But one thing we'll notice is that my playhead is not here. I can't really preview anything. And that's because we're actually right now editing this inside the editor without pressing the rhythm director. I'll show you something before I do that, because there's a little gotcha. The one thing we can do first is set up the tempo now. We've got 150. You see that the duration has now changed to the audio, to the full length. So I'm just going to set this to an offset of 2. This is when this is starting. And we're going to set up our tempo from there. Boom. There you go. We got all our little dots that are going to be off tempo, on tempo, off tempo, on tempo. And this is very nice and neat to set up our notes. So how do we set up our notes from there? We can either right click and add from note definition. And then we've got our notes over here. Let's say we want a, we're going to do a tap note. Or what we can do is, if we go over there inside rhythm timeline, demos, penguin tracks, scriptable object, notes, we'll find all of our notes. And what we can do is just drag and drop. It's that easy. And we can move them around, etc. But one thing you'll notice is that currently this tap note is supposed to be a fixed length, but I can actually drag it around. And this is the gotcha I was talking about before. Right now the tap note is set to tip duration crochet. This means that it's fixed to a certain BPM of the song. But we also got free, half crochet, fixed duration, scaled crochet. So you got different settings that you can set. But this won't actually take any effect until you press rhythm director. And as soon as you do, we can see things changing. Currently, I'm not previewing the right track. So let me fix that really quickly. So let's go back to where it was. Tutorial 1. We have to open this in the rhythm director. As soon as we do, it's going to select the rhythm director, and inside the playable director, it's selected timeline or tutorial 1 there. And now that we're previewing with the director selected, we can see our notes are now fixed. So if I try to make them bigger, they don't get any bigger. That's very good, because we want the tracks to be a fixed size for those notes, because the size matters of when you click things and you want your perfects. So now that we've got all of that done, you can see a few things that are quite useful. First thing is we can preview things inside the game view. We can Control C, Control V, paste notes around. So very useful. We can also move them around between tracks, which is very useful also. And let's have a look. I'm going to show you a hold note, for example. Hold notes are notes that have a free duration and a free kind of drag and drop. You can set where it starts, where it ends. The counter is slightly interesting because just like the hold, you can make it bigger or smaller, but actually it stays inside the same spot until it disappears. And it has a little value over there. The value is actually set inside the inspector once you select the clip with this int parameter. So you can see that as I'm increasing the parameter, it actually changes the value over there. And that means the number of times I have to click this note before it goes away. And if you click it enough times before it finishes, then you get a perfect. And yeah, that summarizes a bit all of the notes that you can find by default. And I think with that, you got a pretty good understanding of how the system works. So let's see, let's have a look at if we can play our song. I'm going to save the timeline, have everything ready, press play. Got our little notes coming down. So this is the song we just created. Our little things. We got our hold, and then we got our counter over there that we can press. Oh, perfect. There you go. It's that easy. What else can we have a look at? I think at this point, what we can do is go through a few of the important components. So inside the manager, you will be required to add all of those components at your scene because these are used by a lot of the systems. If you want to have any information on those, make sure to check out the documentation. One of the interesting ones is the score manager, where you can select how we've got all those perfects and bads coming up. We can choose whether where we spawn those little accuracy pop-ups with this button over here, and if we want to spawn them in a specific spot. We can also have some UI to display the score, the chain, the rank, etc. So you can play around with this component. Make sure that you just drag and drop the rhythm director over here. Inside the rhythm director, there's a few settings that are very important. So if we go over here, what we've got is the notes. Let's say we got a few notes, and we can notice how those notes, they appear at some point. They're not always there. So let me just move those around so that we can see this. And see at this point they don't exist, and then at some point they start to appear on the screen. So this is controlled via this here, the spawn time range. So this tells us that our notes are going to be spawned 9 seconds before the clip ends, and they're going to disappear 3 seconds after the clip. Sorry, I was going to say clip start for this one and clip end for this one. So if one wants to say, let's say, our notes need to disappear or appear at different times, then let's say I want them to appear here while they're inside the game view. What I can do is just take this. Let's say I'm going to put them to 2, and then I just undo the preview, redo the preview, and now we can notice how they only spawn when we're actually close to the thing. So this allows you to help with performance also, so don't start displaying things that are just so far away out of the camera. And we can make more use of the pool because all of those notes are pooled inside the system. I'm going to do the same for when they get out. Let's say I'm going to move this to 1, preview, and now they disappear as soon as they reach 1 second after the note. Make sure you add a little padding over here. Don't set this to 0 because otherwise it might be too easy to miss things, right? And you might not be able to put some effects that you might want to put. What else can we have a look? We got the note speed. note speed is usually set to scale with BPM. So it's going to multiply the BPM with the note speed to set up a specific speed for a note. So let's say over here, we can see that if I press play, this is the speed of our note. If I increase this to, let's say 5, now it's going to be much faster. And if I press play, you can see they come from further away, but they're going faster. If I press inside the game view, you can see they're really much faster. But they always come to that point exactly on perfect, right? Because what we're doing is we're calculating the position from the start point to the end point so that it reaches the end point at that exact time. You can also control the speed of the notes directly from the timeline. So let's select our timeline over there. And we can see we got the PPM over here. And we got the override note speed. So if you don't want the rhythm director to control the speed, but rather you want the timeline to control the speed of the notes, you can do it from here by pressing override speed and setting the speed over here. What else do we want to have a look? Probably rhythm input manager. So the input manager over there, we've got a few settings. So for example, we've got 4 tracks, and that means that we have got 4 inputs, 1 input for each track. We've got inputs D, F, J, K. So this is set up over here. And we've also got some inputs for left, right, etc. We can choose whether we want 2D touch collider or 3D touch collider. I really recommend you stay with 3D so that it works for more camera angles if you want. And you can set up whether you want certain inputs to be disabled inside the editor or disabled inside the build, etc. etc. So very, very important component over here. It both works with the old input system or the new input system. I forgot to have a look at how we set up our own notes. Let's have a look. So if we click our clip over here and we can find our note definitions, our note definitions have a prefab. So this is where you set up what kind of note is going to be spawned. We've got also a few settings over here, like the clip editor settings, where you want this to be displayed. So we've got the color. If I select this one, for example, this is the hold note. We've got it so that it displays an image on the left and the right side. And you can change what image gets displayed. For example, for those swipe notes, we've got a little arrow. So I display a little arrow over there. So it's an easy way to be able to display things inside the editor and see what you're going to spawn. But then those prefabs over there is completely up to you to define what those are. We're going to have a look at the tap note first. So what is a tap note? The note component should always be at the top of your prefab. Over there, if we right click this thing, that script, and we open it up, we'll see that this component inherits from notes. So if you were to make your own notes, for example, custom notes, whatever, you'll have to inherit from this class over here. And inside another video tutorial, I'll go in depth on how to make your own notes, what functions you can use, etc. But for now, we'll keep this simple. So what is a tap note? A tap note is just a note where as soon as it reaches the perfect point, you just click on it and you get a perfect. So we've got a few fields over here. You can check the documentation to see exactly what those do, or check the source codes, or also check the tooltips by just having your mouse hover over the fields. We've got this one, update with timeline. I usually set that to true. It just means that it updates as you move the cursor inside the timeline window. Also at runtime, it's going to use the timeline time to update it. Otherwise, it's going to use updates. We got the activate with clip. This is optional. I usually take that off. This way, it's going to apply with these offsets over here, where you can choose whether a tap note or whatever note gets activated before it reaches the clip time. Let me just clarify this a little bit. Usually the note becomes active, so you'll see how it's gonna arrive over here, and then it's gonna become active here for input. So it's gonna tell the rhythm processor, hello rhythm processor, I'm now the one inside the track that is active, and now you can click on this track and it's gonna say, you're the active note. And then as soon as you reach over there, it's gonna say, you missed your chance to click this note, right? So this is how it's usually done through the clip end and the clip start. But then you can add some offset with time with those values over there. If you don't click this with clip, it's going to use the timings of start and stop rather than events from the timeline. I usually prefer using timings rather than events from the timeline clip. Over there, you've got the orient with track. This is just to make sure that all your notes are oriented with the track from the start point to the end point. So if you rotate your track, then you could have those being rotated too. And then we've got a little component that gets activated when this clip is active. It's very, very simple stuff. We've got the note effect. This is a component for receivers. We've got a lot of event receivers, so make sure to check out the documentation or just check events over here. You'll notice our events receivers. We've got note events. We've got our score event receiver, song event receiver, track input, track notes. So these are our events or components that allows you to easily subscribe to some events and do some visuals or audio or whatever thing you want. Next, we're going to have a look at the hold note. The hold note has a start point and an end point, and it's set up like so. It uses a line renderer to draw between those 2 points. And we have a color for that, and we can choose whether we get a perfect by releasing perfectly or whether it just auto perfect release. And if we remove the note, it's missed. Also, we got our note effects again. And we've got our swap notes. Swap notes are very similar to tap notes, but instead of being just a tap, it's a direction. You can choose the direction over here. For example, this one is going to be down because Y is below. We can also select our angle tolerance. So for example, if we're to go down but slightly on an angle, well, here we can say by how much we're going to tolerate that angle. What else? We've got our hold note. So hold note, no, we've already seen hold note, sorry. Well, our counter note. Counter note is using a counter notes game object. We've got our text to display the value, and as I explained before, you got to click as many times as this value to get perfect between the allocated time. So these are all the notes. You can make your own notes by creating your own prefabs, change all the art if you want. Pretty much everything can be changed. The important part is just this one component that always needs to be a note at the top of your prefab. Everything else is completely optional. Of course, you can make your own custom scripts for notes. For example, for OSU notes, we've got some different ones. For the VR one, we've got different scripts. You can make your own to really make the game the way you want it. And I think with that, we've covered pretty much everything we need. We'll have a look in another video tutorial for the OSU demo and another one for the VR demo, because those notes are a little bit interesting. I think, yeah, we'll end it here. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.